When I look back on that night, I realize it wasn't just a simple party with laughter, music, and glasses clinking in the dim light. It was a night that changed the way I looked at my marriage, my friendships, and even myself. My name is Emily Carter, and this is the story of the night party I had with my husband and his friends, a true relationship story that I carry in my heart like both a wound and a lesson. It began in the middle of summer, when the air was heavy and the evenings stretched endlessly into the night. My husband, Daniel, had always been the kind of man who loved people around him. He was sociable, outgoing, and always wanted the house to feel alive. Daniel wasn't the kind to sit quietly with just me and a book. He thrived in groups, with laughter filling the air. I, on the other hand, leaned more toward quiet nights, curled up with tea and a good novel. But being married meant balancing our differences, and so when Daniel suggested hosting a party with his closest friends, I agreed. Daniel's friends had been part of his life since college. There was Michael, tall and easygoing, who had a sharp wit that could make anyone laugh. Then there was Jason, the more serious one of the group, with a career in finance and a habit of analyzing everything. Lastly, there was Ryan, the storyteller, who always had a new adventure to share, whether it was a fishing trip gone wrong or a funny memory from their fraternity days. I had met them all before, but mostly in passing during dinners or football games. That night, however, I would see them in a new light. I spent the day preparing the house. I set out string lights across the backyard, arranged snacks and drinks on the patio table, and made sure the music playlist was just right. I wore a simple dress, nothing too fancy, just something that made me feel comfortable yet elegant. As I looked at myself in the mirror before the guests arrived, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nerves. Hosting a party was never my strong suit, but I wanted it to be perfect for Daniel. The doorbell rang just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Daniel's friends came in, each carrying bottles of wine or 6 packs of beer, their laughter filling the house almost instantly. They greeted me warmly, complimenting the setup, and I felt myself relax. The music played softly in the background, conversations flowed easily, and soon enough, the night was in full swing. At first, I watched Daniel in his element. He moved around confidently, making everyone laugh, topping off drinks, and telling stories of his own. He looked happy, and that made me happy. There's a certain kind of joy in seeing your partner thrive among the people who know him best. But as the hours went on, I noticed something I hadn't before. While Daniel loved to be the center of attention, his friends seemed curious about me too. Michael asked about my work and listened intently as I described the projects I'd been doing. Jason, who usually stayed reserved, surprised me by asking thoughtful questions about my hobbies. Even Ryan, who could talk endlessly about himself, paused to ask me about my family. At first, I chalked it up to polite conversation. After all, we were all sitting around the patio table, sharing drinks and stories. But the more the night unfolded, the more I realized I was becoming part of their dynamic in a way I never had before. Daniel noticed it too. I caught him glancing at me from across the table, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Maybe he was proud that his friends liked me. Maybe he felt reassured that I could fit into his world just as easily as he fit into mine. Whatever it was, I felt a strange warmth in my chest. For the first time, it didn't feel like Daniel and his friends versus me. It felt like we were all one group. As the night deepened, stories grew louder, laughter rang sharper, and the drinks flowed freely. Someone suggested moving inside for a change of atmosphere, and soon enough, we were gathered in the living room. Daniel played bartender, mixing cocktails with more enthusiasm than skill, while the rest of us sank into the couches and chairs. The music grew softer, almost a background hum, as conversations turned more personal. Jason shared about a tough breakup he had gone through recently, and we all listened as he admitted how hard it was to trust again. Michael chimed in with his own struggles balancing work and personal life. Ryan confessed that despite his adventurous nature, he often felt lonely. It struck me how different these men seemed when they weren't all joking and competing for laughs. Beneath the surface, they were human, vulnerable, searching, just like the rest of us. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his hand resting on mine, and I felt connected to him in a way I hadn't in a long time. Marriage often falls into routines, where conversations revolve around bills, chores, and schedules. But that night, surrounded by his friends, I saw Daniel not just as my husband, but as a man with a life full of stories, friendships, and history. I was reminded of why I fell in love with him in the first place. The hours slipped away, and before we knew it, it was well past midnight. Michael and Jason eventually left, promising to do this again soon. Ryan stayed behind a little longer, finishing his drink and helping us tidy up before finally saying goodnight. When the door closed and the house grew quiet again, Daniel and I looked at each other and burst into laughter. The kind of laughter that comes not from jokes but from shared joy and relief. We sat together on the couch, exhausted but content. Daniel pulled me close and whispered, "You are amazing tonight. They loved you." I smiled, feeling a mix of pride and tenderness. And I loved being part of it. I felt like I really got to know them. He kissed my forehead and said, "I'm glad. You're the most important part of my life, Emily. I want them to see that." Those words stayed with me long after the night ended. Because in that moment, I realized that the party wasn't just about drinks and laughter. It was about connection. It was about Daniel wanting his friends to know the woman he built his life with. It was about me stepping into his world and finding my place there. And it was about the bond we shared, strong enough to bridge the differences in who we were as individuals. The night party didn't lead to drama or betrayal. It didn't expose secrets or ignite conflicts. Instead, it quietly strengthened the foundation of my marriage. It showed me that relationships aren't just about two people in isolation, but about the communities they build together. Over the years, Daniel's friends became mine too. We shared holidays, supported each other through challenges, and celebrated victories big and small. And every time we gathered, I thought back to that first party, to the string lights glowing in the summer air, to the sound of laughter spilling out into the night. Sometimes, true relationship stories aren't about grand gestures or life-shattering revelations. Sometimes, they're about the quiet nights that leave a lasting mark on your heart. For me, that night party with my husband and his friends was one of those moments. A reminder that love grows not just in private, but in the presence of those who matter to us most. And so, whenever I sit in our backyard on a warm summer evening, I can almost hear the echoes of that night, the clinking of glasses, the hum of music, the laughter of friends, and the steady heartbeat of a marriage.